Torrential rain pounds against her kitchen window as she watches 8 leather-clad bikers huddle under her sagging porch roof. Their massive Harleys gleam in the lightning flashes. At 68, Evelyn has seen enough hardship to last 4 lifetimes. Her hands tremble as she peers through the blinds. These aren't local kids. These are grown men. Big men. Intimidating-looking men with tattoos covering their arms and patches on their jackets she can't quite read from inside. But something about their frantic eyes cuts through her fear. The way they're shielding the oldest one. The way they keep glancing toward her door like it's their last chance. Outside, the storm is worsening. Power lines are hissing. Trees are bending until they're ready to break. But what Evelyn doesn't know is that the man shivering on her porch has the power to transform not just her life, but her entire neighborhood, forever. Every morning brought the same brutal choice for Evelyn Harris. The alarm slices through the darkness at 5:01 a.m. Sharp. Evelyn reaches over to silence it, her rheumatoid arthritis making even that simple motion agonizing. On her nightstand sits a pile of bills with furious red stamps. Final notice. Past due. Service will be disconnected. She's been choosing between medicine and food for 4 months now. This morning, like every morning, medicine loses. Evelyn pulls on her sweater in the frigid apartment. The same wool sweater from 2010, patched with safety pins along the elbows. She checks the thermostat. 40 eintoldig. Cold enough to see her breath, but warm enough to survive another day. In the kitchen, she opens the refrigerator. 1 can of beans, a pack of saltines, 1/4 gallon of milk that expires today. She closes the door without taking anything. Save it for supper, she murmurs to herself. You've got work to get to, but first, the trek. 3 miles to the middle school where she works as a lunch lady. 3 miles because the bus costs 3 tolsolers each way. And that's $6 she can put toward her granddaughter's community college fund instead. Evelyn steps outside into the pre-dawn gloom of South Chicago. Her hips protest every step, but she hums an old gospel hymn anyway. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Her voice echoes off the empty streets. She passes the corner where Tyrone waits for his city bus. The 17-year-old shouldn't be out this early, but his mom works the midnight shift at the hospital. Evelyn waves. Morning, baby. You eat something? Tyrone shrugs. Not hungry. Evelyn knows that shrug. She's worn it herself plenty of times. Without saying another word, she pulls the saltines from her sweater pocket. Take these. A growing boy needs to eat. Miss Evelyn, I can't take your food. Child, I got plenty. The lie comes easy. It's the same lie she's been telling for years. The same lie that keeps the neighborhood children fed while she goes without. This is Evelyn's world. A world where she cashes her Social Security check to buy bus passes for kids whose parents can't afford them. Where she mends backpack straps with her own thread and never asks for payment. Where she tutors reading on her front steps every evening, helping children solve problems she can't afford to fix in her own life. The coffee can on her kitchen counter tells the story. Emergency fund, written in her neat cursive. Inside, $1876 in quarters and pennies. 4 months of saving every spare cent. At the school, Evelyn unlocks the cafeteria, her domain, her kingdom of trays and steam tables. She's worked here for 10 years, ever since her husband passed. The pay is minimum wage, but it's reliable. And reliable matters when you're 68 years old, and nobody wants to hire you for anything better. Principal Jenkins stops by around noon. Evelyn, you're doing amazing work as always. The kids adore you. They do adore her. She knows their names, asks about their families, slips them apple slices when she thinks they're hungry. But adoration doesn't pay the gas bill. After school, Evelyn walks another mile to her second job. The Sunset Manor, Assisted living needs part-time help, and Evelyn's patient hands are perfect for assisting residents who can't manage alone. The work is grueling, but the elderly residents remind her of her own mother. They deserve respect. They deserve compassion. Mr. Washington holds Evelyn's hand during lunch. "You're a blessing, Evelyn." Evelyn smiles. "Just doing what needs doing, sweetheart." At 7:30 p.m., Evelyn finally heads home. Her feet are throbbing. Her shoulders ache from serving trays and helping residents. But she stops at the corner market anyway. "Evening, Evelyn," says Marco behind the counter. "The usual. Just a can of beans tonight." She counts out exact change, dimes and nickels. Marco pretends not to notice. Back home, Evelyn sits at her small kitchen table. One can of beans split between tonight and tomorrow. Saltines on the side. Tea instead of coffee because coffee costs more. On the wall hangs her most cherished possession, her late husband's flag from his military service, folded perfectly in a triangle case. James served 3 tours overseas before coming home to build a life with Evelyn after their parents passed. They never had much money, but they had each other. They had purpose. "Family takes care of family," James used to say. And sometimes family is whoever needs you most. Evelyn lives by those words. When teenage Tyrone's mother lost her job and couldn't work, Evelyn emptied her emergency fund to keep him in school. When Mrs. Ramirez's sidewalk cracked, Evelyn paid for the concrete and spent her weekend pouring it. When the new immigrant family moved in next door, Evelyn helped them complete forms and interpret at the clinic. The neighborhood knows Grammy Eve. They know she'll watch kids for free when parents work late. They know she'll share her last can of beans if someone's hungrier than she is. They know her door is always open to anyone who needs help. Some folks say she's too trusting, too giving. But Evelyn believes what her mama taught her. If we don't take care of each other, who will? Outside, the wind is picking up. Evelyn checks the weather on her old radio. Static crackling through the speaker. Severe thunderstorm warning, possible tornadoes. She double-checks her windows and says her evening prayers. "Lord, keep everyone safe tonight. And if you got any miracles lying around, I could surely use one." But Evelyn Harris has no idea that her miracle is already on its way. 8 motorcycles cutting through the darkness, heading straight for her street. The storm that changed everything started with a single raindrop on Evelyn's kitchen window. October 15th, 7:12 p.m. Evelyn notices the dark clouds gathering as she walks home from Sunset Manor. Her arthritis is flaring, which always means bad weather coming. The old radio in her kitchen had mentioned storms, but the static made it hard to hear the details. She quickens her pace as much as her 68-year-old legs allow. 2 blocks to go. The first drops hit the pavement just as she reaches Maple Street. Big, heavy drops that splatter like coins on the sidewalk. Evelyn pulls her thin sweater tighter. This isn't going to be a gentle fall shower. By the time she reaches her front porch, the wind is picking up. The old oak tree in her yard creaks ominously. Evelyn fumbles with her keys, glancing at the sky. Those clouds look angry, black and swirling like they're planning something terrible. Inside, she flips on the local news. The weatherman's voice crackles through her old television. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect until midnight. Possible tornado activity. Residents should seek shelter immediately if the power flickers. Evelyn's heart skips. She can't afford to lose power, not with the gas bill already past due. Thunder crashes overhead, rattling every window in the house. Evelyn moves to her living room window and peers out at the street. Mrs. Ramirez's porch light is swaying like a pendulum. The wind is howling now, bending the streetlights at impossible angles. That's when she hears them. The rumble starts low, almost like more thunder. But thunder doesn't keep going. Thunder doesn't get louder and more rhythmic. This sound has purpose. This sound is coming her way. Evelyn presses her face to the glass. Through the rain, she sees headlights cutting through the darkness. Not car headlights. These are different, lower, more aggressive. 8 motorcycles roar down Maple Street, their riders hunched against the sideways rain. Harley Davidsons, from the sound of them. Big bikes. Expensive bikes. Not the kind you see in this neighborhood. Evelyn's pulse quickens. She's lived in South Chicago long enough to know that nothing good happens when strangers roll through after dark, especially strangers on motorcycles. The bikes slow as they approach her house. Evelyn's mouth goes dry. Of all the streets in Chicago, why are they choosing hers? The lead rider points toward Evelyn's house, the only house on the block with a covered porch. The only shelter for miles that could protect 8 motorcycles from the storm. One by one, the bikes pull into her driveway, their engines cut out, leaving only the sound of wind and rain. Evelyn watches 8 figures dismount, all wearing black leather, all soaked to the bone. She can see them clearly now under her porch light. The leader is tall with a salt and pepper beard, his leather vest dripping water. There's a younger man helping an older rider who's clearly struggling. 2 others are immediately checking their bikes for damage, moving with military precision. Evelyn notices one rider limping as he climbs off his bike. Another is speaking into what looks like a walkie-talkie, coordinating something. These aren't random troublemakers. They're organized. But organized for what? The storm intensifies. A transformer explodes 2 blocks away, sending sparks into the night sky. The power in Evelyn's house flickers again, then goes out completely. Emergency sirens wail in the distance. Through her window, Evelyn sees the oldest biker stumble. He grabs his chest, his face contorting in pain. The others rush to his side, their voices urgent, but too far away to hear over the wind. Evelyn's first aid training kicks in. She recognizes the signs. Chest pain, pale complexion, difficulty breathing. This man is having a cardiac event. The lead rider looks desperately toward Evelyn's house. Their eyes meet through the glass. In that moment, Evelyn sees something she wasn't expecting. Not anger or menace, but desperation. Pure human desperation. A tree branch crashes onto the neighbor's car. Power lines are sparking across the street. The temperature is dropping fast, and these men are soaked through, 8 of them. Big men, strangers in her neighborhood after dark. Every instinct tells Evelyn to stay inside, lock the doors, wait for them to leave. But the old man isn't getting better. He's leaning heavily on the others, and they're looking around frantically. The nearest hospital is 20 minutes away on a good day. In this storm, with roads flooding and power lines down, it might as well be on the moon. Evelyn's hand hovers over her phone. Call 911. In this weather, with emergency services already stretched thin, help could be hours away. Lightning strikes the transformer at the end of the street. The entire block plunges into darkness. In that moment of brilliant white light, Evelyn sees the truth written on 8 faces. These men aren't here to cause trouble. They're in trouble. Someone's grandfather is dying on her porch, and she's the only one who can help. "Lord, help me," Evelyn whispers, reaching for her door handle. "They're somebody's sons." What happened in the next 20 minutes would test everything Evelyn believed about human nature. Evelyn throws open her front door, rain immediately soaking her face. "Y'all get in here before you catch your death." The 8 bikers freeze. They stare at this tiny, elderly woman standing in her doorway, arms spread wide like she's welcoming family instead of strangers. "Ma'am, we don't want to impose," the leader shouts over the wind. "I don't care what you look like," Evelyn shouts back. "Hypothermia don't discriminate. Get inside." The leader looks at his men, then at Evelyn's determined face. He nods once. "You heard the lady." One by one, 8 massive figures file through Evelyn's tiny doorway. Water drips from their leather jackets onto her worn linoleum. The small living room suddenly feels microscopic, filled with the smell of rain and leather and desperate gratitude. Evelyn moves with practiced efficiency. She spent years caring for people at the assisted living. This is just a bigger emergency. Stone, help me get these towels. She calls over her shoulder, not even realizing she's using their road names she's overheard. From her bedroom closet, she pulls every towel she owns. 7 towels for 8 men. She gives them her last clean sheet. Sit anywhere you can find space, she instructs, repositioning her space heater to face the group. We need to get you all dry before you catch pneumonia. The youngest biker, called Spark by the others, tries to hand her money. Ma'am, for the trouble. Put that away, Evelyn says firmly. You think I'm running a hotel here? This is what neighbors do. But her attention quickly shifts to the oldest man they call Pops. He's sitting heavily in her recliner, his face pale and sweaty despite the cold. His breathing is shallow and rapid. Evelyn's first aid instincts take over. What's your name, sweetheart? Edward, he manages. Edward Brooks. Edward. I'm Evelyn. I work at an assisted living. I'm going to check you over. Okay. She kneels beside the recliner, her arthritic knees protesting. Edward's pulse is rapid and irregular. His skin is clammy. Classic signs of cardiac distress. We need to call 911, she announces. Roads are flooded, says the leader. Ambulance can't get through. We tried. Evelyn's mind races. Her bedroom. It's the warmest, quietest room in the house. Help me get him to my bedroom. Carefully now. 4 bikers lift Edward like he weighs nothing, following Evelyn down the narrow hallway. They lower him onto her bed with surprising gentleness. Stone, bring my purse from the kitchen. There's aspirin in there. Evelyn is all business now. Spark, I need you to elevate his feet. Use those pillows. She finds her blood pressure cuff, a remnant from her caregiver training. Edward's readings confirm her fears. Edward, honey, when did this start? About an hour ago, he gasps. Thought it was just the cold. Evelyn administers aspirin, monitors his pulse, adjusts his position for better circulation. The other bikers watch silently, their tough exteriors cracking with obvious concern. Pops trained most of us. One whispers to another. Taught us about honor, about riding for something bigger than ourselves. He's been riding longer than I've been alive, adds another. We don't leave anyone behind, the leader says quietly. Evelyn catches these fragments as she works. These aren't just random men thrown together. They're family, a brotherhood. Thunder crashes overhead. The storm shows no signs of stopping. Y'all must be starving, Evelyn realizes, and cold. She disappears into her kitchen, returning with her last can of beans and a pack of saltines. 8 hungry men staring at enough food for maybe 2 people. Evelyn heats the beans on her gas stove, the only appliance still working without power. She arranges the saltines on her good plate, the one she uses for special occasions. She makes instant tea with bottled water, serving it in mismatched mugs. It ain't much, but it's warm. The men look at each other uncertainly. They can see this is all she has. Ma'am, we can't take your food, says Stone. Child, when's the last time any of y'all ate? Their silence answers the question. Then you eat. Period. As Evelyn serves the food, she notices something that makes her pause. Mixed among the motorcycle club patches on their leather vests are military service pins, Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, combat infantry badges. These men are veterans. The leader catches her looking. Marines, mostly, some Army. We ride together to raise money for veteran causes. My husband was in the Army, Evelyn says softly. 3 tours. The room grows quiet, except for the storm outside. "What was his name?" asks Edward from the bedroom. "James. James Harris. Good man. Better than I deserved." "They all are," Edward says. "The good ones die too young." For the next hour, Evelyn's house becomes a shelter in more ways than one. She tends to Edward, whose condition slowly stabilizes with rest and warmth. She listens to stories about grandchildren from Stone. She learns that Spark is actually studying to be a paramedic. She discovers that the leader, who finally introduces himself as Richard, lost his own wife last year. "She would have done exactly what you're doing," Richard tells Evelyn. "Open her door to strangers because it was the right thing to do." The tornado sirens wail. Everyone huddles in Evelyn's narrow hallway, the safest spot in the house. Edward is stable enough to be moved, and Evelyn keeps checking his pulse throughout the ordeal. "Where y'all from?" Evelyn asks during a lull in the wind. "All over," says Richard. "We were heading back from a charity ride in Milwaukee. Raised money for homeless veterans." "How much do you raise?" The men exchange glances. "A couple million," Richard says quietly. Evelyn's eyes widened. These aren't small-time charity riders. This is serious money for serious causes. Gradually, the wind dies down. The power flickers back on. Emergency vehicles can be heard moving through the streets again. "Roads should be passable now," Richard announces after checking his phone. The men begin gathering their things. Edward is steady on his feet, color returning to his cheeks. Evelyn's beans and warm shelter may have saved his life. "Ma'am," Richard says as they prepare to leave, "you saved our friend tonight. Let us give you something for your kindness." But Evelyn Harris has spent her whole life taking care of people. She's never been one to accept payment for doing what's right, and she's about to prove it one more time. The leader's final gesture would plant a seed that would bloom into something extraordinary. As the bikers prepare to leave, Richard approaches Evelyn with obvious respect. His leather wallet is thick with cash, more cash than Evelyn has seen in years. "Ma'am, you saved Edward's life tonight. Let us give you something for your kindness." Evelyn holds up her hand like a stop sign. "I didn't do anything that anyone else wouldn't do. Evelyn, please." Richard pulls out a thick roll of bills. "This isn't charity. This is gratitude. Child, if I took money for helping folks, I'd be in the wrong business." Evelyn's voice is firm, but gentle. "The good Lord put y'all on my porch for a reason. Wasn't so I could profit from it." Through her living room window, Evelyn notices movement. Mrs. Ramirez from next door is peeking through her curtains. Other neighbors are watching, too. Evelyn can see the worry in their faces, the judgment forming. 8 big men with motorcycles in Evelyn's house after dark. She knows what they're thinking. Richard persists. "At least let us pay for the food, the electricity you used." "Keep your money," Evelyn says, physically placing her hand over his wallet. "Spend it on your families. Spend it on those homeless veterans you mentioned." Stone speaks up. "Ma'am, we raised $2.3 million this weekend. We can afford to thank you properly." Evelyn's eyes widen at the figure, but her resolve doesn't waver. "Then you take that money and help people who need it more than I do." The men exchange glances. They've met generous people before, but nothing like this. Evelyn Harris just fed them her last can of beans and refuses to take a penny. Richard tries one more approach. When Evelyn turns away, he places $500 on her kitchen table. More money than Evelyn sees in 2 months, she notices immediately. Without a word, Evelyn picks up the bills and walks to Richard. She places them directly in his hand and folds his fingers around them. "My mama taught me that kindness ain't for sale," she says quietly. "Y'all get home safe to your people." Edward, now steady on his feet, approaches Evelyn. "You're an angel, Miss Evelyn. I won't forget this night. Just take care of that ticker," Evelyn replies, patting his arm. The other bikers line up to thank her personally. Each one shakes her hand. These aren't the dangerous strangers she feared 2 hours ago. These are somebody's sons, somebody's fathers. Stone pulls a small prayer card from his wallet. Saint Christopher, patron saint of travelers. He presses it into Evelyn's hand for keeping us safe. As they file out, Richard pauses at the door. He reaches into his vest pocket and pulls out a business card. Expensive cardstock, embossed lettering. At least take this, he insists. If you ever need anything at all, you call that number. Evelyn looks at the card. Summit Enterprises in elegant script, a phone number she doesn't recognize. I don't need anything. Evelyn starts to protest. Promise me you'll keep it, Richard says, his tone serious now. Promise me. Something in his voice makes Evelyn nod. I'll keep it. Thank you, Richard says, for everything. Outside, Evelyn can hear the motorcycle starting up. 8 engines roar to life. She watches from her doorway as they pull out of her driveway, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Mrs. Ramirez appears at her fence. Evelyn? Were you all right? I saw all the motorcycles and got worried. Just some folks caught in the storm, Evelyn replies, keeping their business private. You sure they didn't take anything? These biker types can be trouble. Evelyn thinks about the money they tried to force on her, the genuine gratitude in their eyes. No trouble, Mrs. Ramirez. No trouble at all. But as Evelyn closes her door, she notices the business card in her hand. She tucks it into her Bible, her most treasured possession. Tomorrow she'll go back to her normal routine. 5 a.m. alarm, double shifts, bills on the nightstand. But something has changed tonight. Outside, neighbors are still watching from their windows. Evelyn can feel their eyes on her house. She knows what they're thinking. She'll deal with that tomorrow. Tonight, she just saved a man's life because that's who Evelyn Harris is. Over the next few days, strange things began happening that Evelyn couldn't quite explain. Day 1 after the storm, Evelyn returns to work at the middle school. Her supervisor, Mrs. Jenkins, notices something different. Evelyn, you seem more upbeat today. That gospel humming is extra cheerful. Evelyn smiles, serving the lunch line. Just grateful, I suppose. The storm could have been worse. She doesn't mention the 8 strangers who spent the night in her living room. Some things are private, but the whispers have already started. At lunch, custodian Mike pulls Evelyn aside. Hey, my neighbor on Maple Street said she saw motorcycles at your place during the storm. Is everything okay? Evelyn keeps serving. Just folks caught in bad weather. 8 motorcycles, Evelyn. That's a lot of folks. She can hear the concern in his voice, the suspicion. After work, Evelyn stops at Marco's Corner Market. The conversation dies when she walks in. 3 neighborhood women turn to stare. Mrs. Sanchez whispers something to Mrs. Thompson. Both look at Evelyn with new eyes. Evening, Evelyn, Marco says carefully. Heard you had some excitement during the storm. Nothing exciting about helping people? Evelyn replies, buying her usual can of beans. But she notices Marco counting her change twice, like he's wondering where she really got the money. That evening, Evelyn finally examines the business card properly. Summit Enterprises in elegant script, corporate headquarters address in a part of town she's never been to. She asks her granddaughter to look it up online. Grandma, this is weird. The website is super basic. Just says private investment and community development. The CEO is listed as R. Summit, but there's no photo. What kind of business don't show their boss? The kind with serious money, Grandma, look at this. They're involved in veteran support initiatives across 5 states. Evelyn stares at the screen. These men weren't just riding for fun. They were riding for a cause. Over the next week, strange coincidences pile up. The local veterans hospital receives an anonymous donation. The community center gets surprise funding for senior programs. The food bank finds a mysterious shipment of supplies on their loading dock. Evelyn notices more motorcycles on the roads than usual. Not causing trouble, just there, like they're watching over the neighborhood. Mrs. Ramirez stops by with fresh tamales and pointed questions. Evelyn, people are talking, saying you might be mixed up with the wrong crowd. What people? Church people, school people, they're worried. Evelyn sets down her tea. Worried about what? About you letting strangers into your house? About what kind of people ride motorcycles in storms? They were good people, Mrs. Ramirez. How do you know, Evelyn? You're too trusting. What if they come back? That night, Evelyn lies in bed holding the business card. Part of her expects to never hear from those men again. That's how it usually goes when she helps people. They say thank you and disappear back into their lives. But something feels different this time. Something about the way Richard insisted she keep the card. Something about the expensive paper and the mysterious company. Evelyn tucks the card back into her Bible and says her prayers. She has no idea that 8 men in leather jackets are planning something that will change her life forever. The truth about that stormy night was about to arrive at Evelyn's front door. Day 8. After the storm, Saturday morning, October 23rd, Evelyn is tending her small garden, pulling weeds from around her tomato plants. The October sun feels good on her back. For a moment, she forgets about the whispers, the worried looks, the way conversations stop when she enters a room. Then she hears it, that rumble, deep and rhythmic. Not thunder this time, but engines, lots of them. Evelyn straightens up, her arthritic back protesting. Down the street, she sees a single motorcycle turning onto Maple Street. Then 5 more, then 20, then more than she can count. Her hands start shaking as motorcycles line her entire street. Neighbors peek from windows. Children point from porches. Mrs. Ramirez comes out on her lawn, cell phone already in hand, probably calling the police. The sound is deafening. Then, in perfect unison, it stops. 100 bikers dismount simultaneously. Evelyn's mouth goes dry. She recognizes the 8 from that night. But now they're accompanied by an army, all wearing similar leather vests, all moving with military precision, all looking directly at her house. "Lord, what have I gotten myself into?" Evelyn whispers. Her mind races through possibilities. Revenge for something she doesn't understand. Gang business she accidentally witnessed. Maybe they think she knows something she doesn't. She considers running inside, locking the door, calling for help. But it's too late for that now. The leader from that night walks up her driveway. But now Evelyn notices details she missed before. His leather jacket isn't just any jacket. It's expensive with official patches she can see clearly in daylight. Military bearing is more pronounced. Other bikers treated him with obvious respect. Professional bodyguards flanking him. This isn't just some motorcycle club leader. This is someone important. "Miss Evelyn," he says, his voice carrying easily across the suddenly silent street. "I need to properly introduce myself." Evelyn's neighbors are gathering now. Mrs. Ramirez, Mike from across the street, the Thompson family, Tyrone and his mother, all watching, all waiting to see what trouble Evelyn has brought to their quiet neighborhood. My name is Richard Summit. The name sounds familiar, but Evelyn can't place it. "Nice to meet you proper, Mr. Summit. You have my card, Summit Enterprises. But what you don't know is what that company really does." Evelyn glances around at her neighbors. She can see the fear in their eyes. 100 motorcycles, military precision, a leader who speaks like he's used to being obeyed. "Mr. Summit, I appreciate you stopping by, but Miss Evelyn," Richard interrupts gently. "I'm not just a successful businessman. Summit Enterprises has donated over $50 million to veteran causes in the past 5 years. The crowd murmurs, "$50 million from a motorcycle club? We're not just a riding club," Richard continues, his voice carrying to every neighbor within earshot. "We're all veterans. Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force. We ride together to raise money and awareness for veteran causes. Evelyn's eyes widened. Veterans like her, James. That storm caught us returning from a 3-state charity ride that raised $2.3 million for homeless veterans. We were exhausted, soaked, and Edward was having a medical emergency when we found your porch. Mrs. Ramirez lowers her phone. Tyrone's mother steps closer to hear better. You mean Evelyn's voice is barely a whisper? Y'all are the good guys. Richard smiles. Thanks to you, we're alive, guys. The revelation hits the crowd like a wave. These aren't dangerous criminals. These are heroes, veterans who ride for charity, men who serve their community. And Evelyn helped them when they needed it most. Miss Evelyn. Richard continues. In 30 years of military service and 15 years running Summit Enterprises, I've never encountered someone who would risk their safety, spend their last resources, and refuse payment to help complete strangers. Evelyn feels tears starting. Mr. Summit, I just did what anyone would do. No, Richard says firmly. You did what heroes do, and we've been looking for someone exactly like you. The crowd is completely silent now. Even the children have stopped moving. We've spent the past week researching you, Miss Evelyn. Your volunteer work at the food pantry, your double jobs to support your granddaughter's education, your reputation in this neighborhood as someone who helps everyone, your financial struggles despite your generosity. Evelyn's cheeks burn with embarrassment. Her private struggles exposed in front of everyone. We've been looking for someone to run our new community outreach center, Richard announces. Someone who understands what it means to serve others without expecting anything in return. The neighbors exchange glances. Community Outreach Center here. Mr. Summit, Evelyn stammers. I'm just a lunch lady and part-time caregiver. I don't know anything about running centers. You fed 8 strangers your last can of beans, Richard replies. You opened your home to people who could have been dangerous. You saved a man's life and refused payment. Miss Evelyn, you don't need to learn how to serve people. You need to learn how to let people serve you. Mrs. Ramirez's hand goes to her mouth. Mrs. Thompson starts crying. These neighbors who've been whispering about Evelyn's poor judgment are suddenly seeing the truth. Evelyn Harris isn't the problem in their neighborhood. She's the solution. We want to offer you a position. Richard says $75,000 a year to coordinate community programs, full health care benefits, housing allowance, and the budget to hire and train other community workers. Evelyn's knees almost give out. More money than she's ever dreamed of. To help people, to serve her community. This can't be real, she whispers. Miss Evelyn, Richard says, his voice carrying across the silent street. You changed our lives that night. Now we want to change yours. And through you, we want to change this whole community. What Evelyn thought was a simple act of kindness to strangers was actually rescuing some of the most powerful veteran advocates in the country. Her refusal of payment wasn't just moral. It was the exact test that proved she was the person they'd been searching for. But the job offer was just the beginning of what Richard Summit had planned. Evelyn's hesitation is written all over her face. Mr. Summit, this is too much. I can't accept charity. This isn't charity, Miss Evelyn, Richard replies, his voice carrying across the silent street. This is the smartest business decision I've ever made. Let me show you what we're really offering. Richard pulls out architectural blueprints from his motorcycle saddlebag. He spreads them across Evelyn's small porch table as neighbors crane their necks to see. Community center blueprint for this neighborhood, he announces. Medical clinic with free basic services, job training programs, after-school tutoring center, senior services coordination. Evelyn's eyes widen as she studies the plans. The building is massive, professional, more resources than this neighborhood has ever seen. You wouldn't just have a job, Evelyn. You'd be the director of community impact. You'd decide how we spend our resources to help the most people. Mrs. Ramirez steps closer, her earlier suspicions forgotten. Did he say free medical clinic? Yes, ma'am, Richard confirms, and job training programs for anyone who needs them. Other bikers step forward, removing their helmets. Suddenly, they look less intimidating and more like professionals. This is Dr. Thomas Reed, Richard says, introducing a tall African-American man, former Army trauma specialist. He'll run the medical clinic. Stone? Evelyn asks, recognizing him. Dr. Reed smiles. Stone was my road name, but I've been treating veterans for 15 years, and this is Maria Gonzalez, former Marine Logistics Coordinator. She'll handle job placement and training programs. Evelyn shakes her head in amazement. Y'all got real jobs, real careers. This is Reverend Paul Mitchell, chaplain and community organizer. He'll coordinate with local churches and community groups. Tyrone's mother speaks up from the crowd. Reverend, you're a preacher. Reverend Mitchell nods. 20 years in the Army, 10 years in ministry. We ride together because we serve together. Evelyn's questions come rapid fire. But why me? Why this neighborhood? Because you prove that real change starts with real caring, Richard explains. We've tried top-down programs before. They fail because they don't have heart. You have more heart than anyone we've ever met. Richard continues unveiling the complete vision. Summit Enterprises has been planning community intervention programs in underserved areas. Your neighborhood was selected after extensive research, but we needed someone local who understood the real needs. Someone who already has the community's trust, adds Dr. Reed. Evelyn looks around at her neighbors. Mrs. Ramirez, who brings her tamales, Tyrone, who calls her Grammy Eve, Mrs. Thompson, who asks her to interpret documents. These are her people. The personal benefits are substantial, Richard continues. Your granddaughter's community college tuition will be fully covered, plus certification programs if she chooses. Your housing situation will be resolved immediately with a moving allowance and first year's rent paid in advance. Evelyn gasps. My granddaughter's education full scholarship. We've already contacted her school. Health insurance starts immediately. Maria adds comprehensive coverage, including dental and vision. Company vehicle for community work, Reverend Mitchell mentions. Can't coordinate programs if you can't get around. Evelyn's hands shake as the magnitude hits her. How much would I be managing? $500,000 annually for community programs, Richard states, plus authority to hire 12 full-time positions. The crowd murmurs $500,000 in their neighborhood. Construction begins in 30 days, Richard continues. You'll start with 6 weeks of paid training at our headquarters, leadership development, program management, community organization. Evelyn's voice cracks. I've never managed more than my own checkbook. You've been managing this entire community's well-being for years, Dr. Reed replies. Now you'll have resources to match your heart. Richard addresses the growing crowd of neighbors directly. Miss Evelyn isn't the only hero on this street. We want to hire locally, train locally, and invest locally. Anyone interested in construction jobs, administrative work, or program coordination should talk to Evelyn this week. Tyrone raises his hand. Construction jobs? Real construction jobs? 40-hour weeks? Full benefits? Apprenticeship programs? Maria confirms. Suddenly, Summit Enterprises trucks appear at the end of the street. Workers begin unloading groceries, medical supplies, and legal aid materials. Immediate assistance while we build the permanent center, Richard explains. Free groceries for every household on this block. Mobile medical clinic for health screenings. Legal team to help with housing issues. Immigration paperwork, anything you need. Mrs. Ramirez wipes her eyes. Free groceries for everyone? Everyone, Dr. Reed confirms. Evelyn's voice shakes with emotion. I don't know what I did to deserve this blessing, but I promise y'all every penny will go to helping folks who need it most. The crowd erupts in cheers and tears. Children are asking to touch the motorcycles. Adults are crying with joy and disbelief. Richard pulls out official documents. Signing ceremony Monday morning at our headquarters. Background check formalities, though we know you'll pass with flying colors. First community meeting scheduled for next week, Maria adds to hear what programs you want most. Training starts the following Monday, Reverend Mitchell concludes. Richard hands Evelyn keys to a reliable Honda Civic. You can't coordinate community programs if you can't get around the community. Evelyn stares at the keys, her first car in 5 years. Edward Brooks, the older biker whose life she saved, approaches with obvious emotion. Miss Evelyn, you didn't just save my life that night. You reminded us what we're fighting for. This isn't just business, it's personal. Neighbor testimonials start flowing. Tyrone steps forward. Miss Evelyn bought my bus passes when Mom was laid off. Mrs. Ramirez, she poured my sidewalk and wouldn't take a dime. The market owner. She helps interpret for customers who don't speak English. This is exactly why we chose you, Richard says. You've already been doing this job. Now you'll get paid for it. Evelyn's moment of clarity comes like sunrise. Mr. Summit, if this means I can help more people the way y'all helped me, then yes. Yes, I'll do it. 100 bikers cheer. Neighbors cry happy tears. Children dance in the street. Evelyn's small act of kindness has transformed into a community celebration that will change hundreds of lives. 6 months later, Evelyn's neighborhood was unrecognizable. The abandoned lot where kids used to play in broken glass now houses a gleaming community center. Solar panels catch the morning sun. Wide glass doors welcome families streaming in for programs. The sign reads, Evelyn Harris Community Impact Center in gold letters. Evelyn herself is transformed. Gone are the worn lunch lady uniforms and pinned sweaters. She wears professional business attire, her head held high as she greets community members by name. Her reliable Honda has been upgraded to a Summit Enterprises van equipped to transport seniors to medical appointments. The numbers tell an incredible story. 47 local residents now have full-time jobs. Construction workers who built the center stayed on as maintenance staff. Former unemployment recipients now run the after-school programs. Mrs. Sanchez, who used to struggle with English, manages the interpretation services department. 156 children are enrolled in after-school programs. Tyrone graduated high school with honors and starts community college next fall on a Summit Enterprise scholarship. His mother, formerly stressed about his future, now coordinates the youth mentorship program. 89 seniors receive regular health screenings at the medical clinic. Mrs. Ramirez discovered her hypertension early thanks to free blood pressure testing. Edward Brooks, the biker whose life Evelyn saved, volunteers twice a week checking vitals for elderly residents. 23 families have moved from shelters to stable housing through the Housing Assistance Program. Evelyn personally helped each family navigate the paperwork using skills she learned during her 6-week training. Media coverage has been overwhelming. The local news station did a 3-part series, Community Transformation Inspired by Act of Kindness. Channel 9's morning show featured Evelyn explaining how 1 can of beans changed hundreds of lives. The regional newspaper ran a front-page story, how 1 woman's compassion sparked $1 million investment. The article included before and after photos that went viral on social media. National Veteran Magazine published a cover story, Summit Enterprises' most successful community partnership. Evelyn appeared on the cover alongside Richard Summit, both smiling in front of the community center. Evelyn's daily routine reflects her transformation. 7:30 a.m., arriving at the center in professional clothes, greeting staff members who used to be neighbors struggling to find work. Morning meetings with program coordinators discussing expansion plans. Evelyn leads these meetings with confidence she never knew she possessed. Lunch meetings with city officials and other community leaders. The mayor now asks Evelyn's opinion on citywide programs. Her success model is being studied for replication. Afternoon. Direct interaction with community members. Evelyn still knows everyone's name, still asks about their families, still gives out hugs freely. Evening planning sessions for new initiatives. The center now operates from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., serving over 400 families. Community testimonials pour, in daily. Tyrone, now in community college. Miss Evelyn's tutoring program didn't just help me get certifications. It showed me I was worth investing in. Mrs. Ramirez. The senior health clinic caught my hypertension before it got dangerous. Miss Evelyn saved my life just like she saved those bikers. Local mother Carla Mendoza. The job training program got me off welfare and into a career I love. My children see me working with purpose now. Robert Lewis, a former drug dealer. Miss Evelyn gave me a construction job and a second chance. I've been clean for 6 months and got my kids back. The ripple effects extend far beyond the neighborhood. Summit Enterprises has opened 4 additional community centers in other cities, each following Evelyn's model of relationship-driven development. Evelyn travels monthly to consult with other communities seeking similar transformation. Her speaking fees go directly back into local programs. Harvard Business School created a case study called Evelyn's Way Relationship-Driven Community Development. Students study her approach in graduate courses. Congressional hearings on community-based intervention programs feature Evelyn's testimony about what works versus what doesn't. The motorcycle club's continued involvement has deepened. Their annual charity ride now specifically benefits Evelyn's programs, raising over $5 million last year. Individual bikers maintained personal relationships with community members. Stone, Dr. Reed, married a local teacher who volunteers at the medical clinic. Pops, fully recovered from his heart episode, moved to Chicago to be closer to the center. He runs a motorcycle safety program for teenagers. Richard Summit bought a house 3 blocks away. Evelyn reminds me why I do this work, he explains. Unexpected developments continue emerging. Evelyn's granddaughter changed her major from nursing to social services, inspired by her grandmother's example. 3 major corporations launched similar community partnerships after studying Evelyn's success. Property values are rising, but affordable housing remains protected through Evelyn's advocacy and legal expertise she gained in training. The emergency fund that once held $1,876 has been replaced by a community emergency fund worth $50,000. Evelyn's personal savings account grows monthly for the first time in decades. Awards and recognition accumulate. Presidential Volunteer Service Award, State Recognition for Community Development, Summit Enterprises Humanitarian of the Year, Community College Honorary Degree. But Evelyn's favorite recognition comes from neighborhood children who still call her Grammy Eve and stop by for homework help, knowing she'll always have time for them. Sometimes I wake up thinking I'm still dreaming, Evelyn reflects. But then I see families having hope again, and I know the Lord had a plan all along. 1 year later, on the anniversary of that stormy night, the tradition began. October 15th, another severe weather warning. Another evening of dark clouds and threatening skies. But this time, Evelyn isn't watching from a struggling household. She's coordinating emergency response from the community center. "All right, everyone," Evelyn announces to her staff. "The weather service says we might get severe storms tonight. Let's open the center as an emergency shelter." As rain begins to fall, Evelyn notices familiar headlights in the community center parking lot. Not just any headlights, motorcycle headlights. A smile spreads across her face. Richard Summit and his crew arrive, but they're not seeking shelter this time. They're checking on their investment, their friend, their inspiration. "Y'all come in here before you get soaked," Evelyn calls out, using the exact same words from that night a year ago. Same warmth, same welcoming spirit, but now she's greeting them into a space they helped create. What Evelyn doesn't know is that this has become an annual pilgrimage for the motorcycle club. Every October 15th, they return to remember the night that changed everything. This year they've brought guests, community leaders from the 4 other cities where Summit Enterprises has started programs. Young veterans learning about community service. Evelyn's granddaughter, now a social services student doing her internship at the center. Local government officials document the program's success for replication in other states. Despite her transformed circumstances, Evelyn still insists on personally serving tea and snacks to everyone. Her heart hasn't changed, only her capacity to help others. Edward Brooks, now 77 and healthy, approaches with obvious emotion. "Miss Evelyn, you didn't just save my life that night. You gave me purpose. I volunteer here twice a week now, and it's the best part of my week, and you still won't take payment for it." Evelyn laughs, referencing their ongoing joke. The next generation has joined the tradition. Local children who benefited from Evelyn's programs now volunteer to help serve the visiting bikers. Tyrone is home from community college helping coordinate the anniversary event. "You know what I learned that night?" Richard reflects, sitting in the same chair where Edward recovered a year ago. "That real success isn't measured by how much money you make. It's measured by how many lives you touch." Evelyn pours his tea, still using mismatched mugs because she likes them. "Mr. Summit, I learned something too. The Lord gives us storms not to tear us down, but to show us who we really are when the winds get rough." As the anniversary evening winds down, Evelyn mentions a new family that just moved into the neighborhood. Single mother with 3 children struggling to find work, proud, but in need of community support. "Point us in their direction," Richard says immediately. The tradition continues. Evelyn's approach to helping others hasn't changed. She still notices who needs help, still opens doors without asking questions, still shares what she has with whoever needs it. But now she has an army of resources behind her. Every act of kindness has the potential to transform lives. The final image. Evelyn standing in the doorway of the community center, watching the bikers ride safely into the night, knowing they'll return when needed, knowing the community is stronger, knowing that kindness is still the most powerful force in the world. Above the doorway, a plaque reads, "Kindness lives. Here. It always has." Evelyn's final message echoes from her office at the community center. "Folks always ask me, 'Evelyn, how did you know those men were worth helping?' Truth is, I didn't. But I knew I was worth being the kind of person who helps when help is needed." She pauses, looking at the photo on her desk. 8 bikers and 1 grandmother, all smiling on opening day. We all got storms in our lives. We all got folks on our porches looking for shelter. The question isn't whether they deserve our kindness. The question is whether we deserve to be people who give it. Your act of kindness might not bring 100 motorcycles to your door, but it might bring hope to someone who desperately needs it. And sometimes that's worth more than all the money in the world. If Evelyn's story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to believe in the power of kindness. Hit that like button if you believe small acts can create big changes. Subscribe for more stories that prove goodness still wins.